It's so funny because you see them, especially on Flip and Flop, and they're like, the expenses are going through the roof. They find stuff that they weren't expecting, and they're like, oh my God, we're going to lose so much money on this. And they always end up making out wonderfully on it and making all this money. And I'm just like, really? I'm like, I wish that was real world stuff around here, Unfortunately, it's not.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And Icon Realty Group, helping home buyers, sellers, and investors in the West Michigan area. Find out more at theiconrealtygroup.com. Hello and welcome to episode 92. My guest today is a real estate entrepreneur specializing in flipping, rehabbing, and rent-to-own properties in the Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo area. He's also an affordable housing provider as well as a credit restoration specialist. Todd Warstler, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in real estate?
Well, real estate was part of my major in college, and upon a 10-year career in sales, I was looking at getting laid off and was thinking about possibly getting my real estate license. And Lou Brown actually came and presented at the RPOA convention back in 2010. And my future father-in-law saw him and knew I was thinking of going into real estate. And so he said, hey, you need to go to Millionaire Jumpstart. And went to the meeting, totally loved it, said I totally like being a real estate investor versus being a realtor. And I actually took my layoff call from my office in Atlanta at one of the meetings.
So they called you, said, sorry, we're letting you go? And,
exactly.
And what did you say?
I said, thank you. I'd actually already gone back and said, hey, can I raise my hand to get laid off after the first meeting? And they said, not if you want your severance package. So I said, okay, just give me a call, let me know.
Wow, isn't it great to have real estate to fall back on when those
really
things
is.
happen? It's great that you had this Lou Brown program to fall back on. Tell me about his program and what you learned there that gave you the confidence that, hey, I don't need to worry, I just got laid off.
It's kind of what I think was really best about Lou is his program's just well-rounded. There's lots of different avenues you can go into. Kind of one of the primary spots that I kind of liked is the rent to own, because being in 2010, we had a lot of houses that were foreclosed, vacant, run down, people losing jobs and incomes. So we kind of saw it as a great way to pretty much merge the two areas and help people out. Excuse me, help get real estate functioning again, fixed up and back on the market, and helping people hardworking make enough money to afford a house payment, but just don't have perfect enough credit to qualify at a bank. And at the time, only 2 out of 10 people had perfect enough credit to walk into a bank and qualify for a mortgage.
So you were an alternative lender then?
Exactly.
And I'm sort of guessing here as to how it works, but you find a distressed house, you go in, fix it up, do rehab, but instead of flipping it to another buyer, you are basically selling it as a rent-to-own to a potential owner.
Correct.
Who starts off as a tenant, but then their rent goes toward paying down the house as well.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so talk about that. Like, what are you looking for in a potential tenant/buyer when you have a rent-to-own property?
Well, just making sure that they qualify, making sure that it's not too expensive for them. There's several different steps that people can take within our programs, depending how much down payment money, assuming they make enough to afford house payments is really the important thing we look at, not as much their credit score. Do want to make sure that, they're paying the majority of their bills and so forth. But really looking at how much they have to put down. So usually 3.5% is where the changeover from a renter to somebody that would have the rent with an option to buy, which typically they get a 2 or 3 year option to purchase the house at a set price for that period of time. And then once they have more money to put down, as soon as they get up to 10%, that's when we do an agreement for deed or basically a land contract for them. So that turns out to be essentially just like a bank mortgage, spread over 30 years.
Walk me through that on a $100,000 home. So you would ask for a 3% down payment. So they would come in with $3,000.
Correct.
That would be their down payment.
Yep.
And that goes toward the eventual purchase of the home.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And then they're paying you a monthly rent.
Correct.
Which would be typically how much on a $100,000 home?
Probably around $1,000 a month. Just depends on the exact price, but yeah, typically around that.
And what portion of that goes toward their payment on the home?
When they're just in the option period, with some of the law changes, we no longer can give them credit for any of that towards the house payment. In the past, we used to. But nowadays, it's just a rental with the option to buy. So essentially, all the money is just rent money until they can put enough down to qualify for a land contract or mortgage. But we also are encouraging them and trying to help them improve their credit so they can get to the point they can qualify for a mortgage with a bank or credit union or so forth. So there's no penalty at any point. They can refinance out if they can get a better rate there and qualify.
Okay, so really that 3% down is really they're purchasing the option to buy. Is
correct.
That
Yep.
one way to look at it?
Yep.
So it's not like a lease to own, it's a rent to own.
Correct. Yep. And that money, should they move forward or purchase the house either on land contract or in through a bank or whatever, that money goes towards that. It's a fee basically buying to lock the price of the house in for a set period of time. Not to say if they can't come up with enough of the money at the end of the 2 or 3 years, not to say that they can't still purchase the house and get the credit towards that. If they've been good at making their payments and taking care of the property and everything, we're not going to say, oh, okay, you're out. It just means that the price may change on the house, but we'd still help them out. We're out there to help people.
So what's the typical period they would have to come up with the ability to buy the house?
Usually 2 to 3 years is what we're looking at. What we've kind of found and actually gotten more involved with the credit repair side of the business is I've been doing it since 2010. I've not had a single person that's qualified that on their own gotten their credit to the point that they can purchase the house outright. So we've actually taken a more proactive approach now in actually helping people do credit repair to help them get to that point, because ultimately we're helping people to get their credit repaired so that they're going to basically, every time they go to purchase something, a house, a car, furniture, appliances, they're going to get beneficial rates. So it's going to, in the long term, save them money all the way around.
Okay, so it sounds like you have the rent-to-own system, but what you were finding was that not very many people got to the point where they repaired their credit well enough that they could go to a traditional lender, get a loan so that they could actually purchase the home. Exactly,
and a lot of people, I think, believe things will just drop off their credit report. And I saw an example: one single payment, that credit card payment that was late, lasted for 7 years on somebody's credit report.
Really? So that really dinged their credit.
Their credit went up 30 to 40 points after that finally dropped off. I'm essentially a certified affordable housing provider, is my designation within the Lou Brown Street Smart systems.
Mm-hmm. Certified affordable housing provider.
Yep.
And what exactly does that mean?
Well, it means that I've been through the training and gotten properly set up to help people to afford, to basically buy a house as rent to own. But we're more than happy to, there's multiple different ways we can sell properties. We can sell them outright if somebody has a bank mortgage or cash to buy it. We also do work for equity program where people actually can get credit towards their down payment if they have more skills than down payment money, where they actually can go into a property and actually fix it up themselves. We'd actually give them credit towards that as their down payment.
So what's an example of what the work someone might do in lieu of a down payment?
It depends. There's all kinds of different things, and houses have all kinds of different situations. I've got one recently, an electrician that was working on a house that we had, and struck up a conversation with him and wondered if we had any properties. And he went into one less than 5 minutes from the house he was working on and went in and he actually rewired the entire place, took all the insulation out, had it all drywalled and fixed up, a new bathroom and everything, and arranged to have all that stuff done as towards a down payment for him.
Wow. So he moved into one of your homes and did all the work himself. Huh?
Yep, exactly. Yep. It took him a little bit to get it fixed up, a month or two to get it fixed up and make it livable so that they could move in. But yeah.
How many of these rent-to-own situations do you do in a typical year?
For just the rent to own, probably we're doing anywhere from 2 to 5 or 6 a year.
And what's the typical price range you're looking for when you find a property that you want to do this with?
Well, definitely the lower the better if we're looking to do rent to own. I do have some investors that they only want to do flips, so we do certainly do some flips in between, and that allows us to get some financing where we can go, purchase more properties to do rent to own. But we've purchased properties as low as $10,000 or $20,000. Obviously needed some work and everything, but it kind of basically we just are looking to see, what needs to be done to the properties, how much we can purchase them for, and what the after repair value is. So we know where we're at, and with our customers, we kind of do marketing ahead of time, trying to find out what customers, where they're interested in buying houses, what type of houses, what type of features they're looking for, and kind of qualify them ahead of time. And then that gives us an idea of who is looking for those type of properties before we buy the house. So we can go shopping for those type of houses that there's the demand and we already have people that are qualified for.
So you're determining your market before you actually go and buy in a type of house or in a type of neighborhood.
Exactly. Well, anybody that goes to our website lets us know where they're looking to purchase a house.
Oh, okay.
So if there's a specific area, some of them are non-specific, just any place in Michigan, sometimes any place in a county. Some people are very specific to only a certain neighborhood or a certain street. Some people even contact us saying, I have this house I want to buy. Can you buy it and then resell it to me? Which,
That's interesting.
is certainly a possibility. We haven't done that with anybody at this point because usually those aren't in the situation that we can get a favorable enough price to have it financially make sense, since we don't go qualify it for loans at banks and so forth.
What is your website?
It's www.nicehometoday.com.
You mentioned investors. Are you working with investors and
Yep.
using other people's money to help?
Exactly.
pick up these homes?
I've got a couple investors. One of my main investors is actually a realtor in San Diego, and he has more fun flipping houses here at a fraction of the cost, and realize they're actually making about the same return. But he's, instead of going and purchasing a house for $800,000 or $850,000, getting an investor to put up another $200,000 or $250,000, fix it up, and then throw it back on the market at 1.3. He's having fun getting his houses $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, putting $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 into it, putting it back on the market at $100,000. Was kind of sort of our cookie cutter where that we would work with. Prices have gone up a little bit, so you have to make sure the numbers make sense. And we've walked away from quite a few deals recently where the numbers just didn't make sense.
Yeah, you're probably seeing that more and more.
Yep, definitely.
How does the investor get paid back? Are they in it for the long haul, or are they getting a quick return on their money?
It just depends on what the investor's looking for. Some of them want to take on less risk and just get a steady income. So in some cases, we work with folks that have IRA money or money sitting in a checking or savings account, making nothing with inflation, losing money. So sometimes we can give folks just a higher interest rate on their money that's uninvested, not doing anything. And some folks just frankly want to get out of the roller coaster ride of being in the stock market. And so having consistent rate of return is good. And then depending on the investor, some want to be more proactive and want to take on more of the risk, in which case that, if they fully fund a property, we'll split the profit 50-50 with them after all the expenses are paid.
Mm-hmm. So what's a typical return that you like to shoot for with your investors?
On a typical house that's $100,000, we're shooting for perhaps a $20,000 or $30,000 profit after renovations on it and after all expenses. But you always, I'm pretty conservative when it comes to the numbers, because there always seems to be additional expenses that come up. So
Sure.
we're, I'm protecting my investors' money. My main investor did a deal with his brother, and, it went down after about 1.5 to 2 years. And his brother unfortunately didn't take on any of the accountability for the loss, and stuck my investor with a $90,000 to $120,000 loss that he had to absorb. So his wife, I felt quite good when his wife was texting me and emailing me and telling me, Todd, thank you for your ethics and being as good a guy as you are, because unfortunately, I guess things didn't go well with family there. So
that's never good. And what's a typical turnaround then for your investor if they put up $60,000? When would they expect to see that return?
It all depends on the property, how much work it needs to be done. We've had some that have taken over a year to complete. In some cases, you get a property open and inspector comes in and says, "Oh, okay, we want you to do this, this, and this too." That we weren't expecting to. So sometimes there's additional costs and time that comes in as a result of that. But a typical $20,000 renovation, usually we can do typically within 45 to 60 days generally, and then we try to price them reasonable so that they're not sitting on the market forever. My investors typically just want to churn it and move on to the next one. So we're usually pricing them decent and usually get 3 or 4 offers within the first day or two generally.
And then when you set it up on the rent to own, some of your investors, it sounds like, would stay in there and just split the cash flow with you. But some might want to just be bought out at that point. Huh? Yeah,
usually in that scenario, we'd be working with an investor that's looking for long-term returns with less risk. In which case, we're just paying them either a standard monthly amount or quarterly or annually. Sometimes we'll do like an annual payment to investors where they're getting the money right before the holidays, maybe around Thanksgiving, so that they have extra money to buy gifts and everything for family and so forth. So it just depends on the investor. Usually the rent to own, we don't do a profit split usually there because most of my investors are looking for a quick return. So those are usually just on the flips.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. I'd also like to tell you about Joshua Schaub and his team at Icon Realty Group, a full-service real estate company in the West Michigan area. Joshua has been a guest on this show several times, and he and his team at Icon Realty Group help buyers gain an edge in this competitive market. They assist sellers in getting the best price and terms for their properties, and they work with investors to understand the numbers, neighborhoods, and market forces that will set them up for long-term success. To learn more and get a free, no-obligation consultation, contact Joshua at 616-216-2000 or visit theiconrealtygroup.com. And let's talk about the credit restoration that you do then.
Sure.
So that with your clients,
our residents, yes.
Residents, however you want to refer to them, what you found was that a lot of them just weren't able to improve their credit for different reasons.
Exactly.
So you saw that there was a need to come in and help them figure out ways to do that.
Yeah.
Talk about that. What's the need and what's the solution that you came up with?
Well, essentially, there's 54 million people that have a credit score in the U.S. of 599 or less, so under 600. With most folks, they need to be at a 620, 640, some even, depending on income, some up to a 700 credit score in order to qualify for a mortgage. And we typically find that people, number one, they think things are just going to drop off their credit score if they do nothing. Oftentimes, that doesn't seem to be the case. And secondly, people just don't know how to go about cleaning up their credit score. And so we started doing this maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We worked with a mortgage company that offered the service, but they charged the clients quite a bit. Customer service was not as good as we would have liked. So we've more recently actually been got involved with a company. Ironically, it's right out of state of Michigan here, called Financial Education Services. And they're a great company. I learned about them through an investor in California that lost several properties to foreclosure during the downturn. And they were able to go through and cure 48 out of the 50 negatives on her credit score. And then the 2 that they didn't, the in-house attorneys moved forward and sued the 2 that didn't respond within the proper period of time and split the profit 50-50 with her.
So they actually got a payout from the
The client got no additional cost to her. The in-house attorneys sued them, and they gave her half of what they got back from it.
Wow.
So, and the company's been great. They've been around for 13 years, have removed over 1 million negatives and derogatories from people's records, and some pretty serious stuff they were able to get rid of. But A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and a great track record and great customer service.
Good. So let's talk about this area, because I know that there are a lot of services out there that claim to help people restore their credit, but there's a lot of bad actors in that field as well. And you hear warnings and horror stories of people who spent thousands of dollars to try to restore their credit, and it was all a sham.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you should look for?
Certainly. Different states have different laws around the fees. With FES, we used to do it upfront fee or a monthly fee.
FES being Financial Education
Services. Yep. Mm-hmm. And they actually did away with that a couple of years ago and actually went to just a monthly fee, where it's less than $3 a day and covers credit restoration, several ways to build new lines of credit, LifeLock identity theft protection, FES Debt Zero, which helps people to prioritize paying their loans down in the smartest way to help basically snowball it and get them paid off. And some estate planning tools, wills, trusts, and power of attorneys forms are included, and other services where they get additional discounts on travel and medications. All that's included for less than $3 a day. And United Credit is the credit restoration arm. It's a nonprofit, and it's A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. So checking with the Better Business Bureau might be a great way to check to see if there's somebody out there that they're not sure. But certainly if there's any references or feedback that people can find on the companies, that's good too. And
does FES also help with negotiating down what amounts that you might owe to different creditors?
Unfortunately, at this point, they don't do that. I don't know if that's something they're going to do in the future. I've heard there's a possibility they might also at some point start helping out actually with people, helping them to get mortgages. At this point, they don't, but I've heard that might be a long-range plan. But there's also some other services outside of the protection plan, which is what I was describing earlier, that we were actually able to help some folks through rent credits. There's several programs out there that they essentially can get credit for, kind of like mortgage payments. They can get credit going up to 2 years back with their rent payments, and they and their roommate or spouse can get that. And we were actually able to help some folks jump their credit score by about 60 points utilizing that. So
with some of your tenants, you actually declare their rent payments to the credit bureau, which then helps improve their credit score.
Exactly. Yep. The company that we go through for that would actually emailed me asking me about the credit references on these folks and how they've been making their payments and so forth. And they'd been with me for over 2 years, so it wasn't a problem to go back and say, yep, they've been less than on time or less than 30 days late on any of their payments. So it jumped their score 60 points and helped them qualify for a mortgage.
Great. And since we're talking about credit restoration, there are a lot of people out there who owe money to Macy's or different credit cards. I'm wondering if you know of the best way to negotiate those down.
I am a huge Dave Ramsey fan, so I always kind of, my ears perk up when I hear different things that he offers on his radio program about that kind of stuff.
Does he offer negotiation services?
He just offers recommendations. That's more if somebody is not making their payments and it basically is delinquent, that over time, if they haven't been making payments for a while, usually switches over to a debt collector, and sometimes they can negotiate a lower rate there. He usually says, make sure you get it in writing, that, if you're going to settle, if you owe $10,000 and they're willing to take $2,000, make sure you get it in writing and never give them access to your bank account.
Yeah. Be very, very careful in negotiating those things. But once it goes to a debt collector, that debt collector has purchased that debt at pennies on the dollar. So you can negotiate with them.
Yeah, oftentimes.
We're not going to give advice here today on how to negotiate those things, but just realize if you're talking with a debt collector, you have a little bit of negotiating power. Give me some examples then of how you've been able to help some of your residents improve their credit so that they could get a loan.
Well, one of the ones I certainly like there is the rental credits. We were using one company, and they're actually switching companies because the previous company was only reporting to one bureau. And when we signed on with them, we were requiring them to report to 3. Essentially, there's TransUnion, there's Experian, there's Equifax, and then there's a smaller company that's just kind of a newcomer called, I believe, Innovius, maybe. I was reading something from Consumer Reports that was talking about that company and perhaps putting a data freeze on your credit report with that company as well.
If someone wants to lend you money or open a credit card in your name or some sort of account, they will check with at least one of those 3.
Correct. They should.
Groups, right?
Yep.
And basically, if you've never gotten a free credit report or looked at your credit report, it's definitely worth doing.
Oh yeah, a lot of people don't have a clue to what their number is, what their actual credit score is, and it's actually kind of interesting. I was at a new home buying seminar recently, and a mortgage broker got up, and she was talking about the difference between something like Credit Karma, what they say your credit report is, or your credit score, versus actually what the bureau or what the mortgage companies, the data that they look at to determine your credit score. So there's actually a difference.
Let's not confuse the two. You've got your credit score, which can be anywhere from
300 to about 850. And I've unfortunately seen some right around 350, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've seen some close to that too. So 350 to 850. But that's not the same as your credit report. Your credit report actually shows your payment history throughout your lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Any credit card or any account that's been opened in your name is in your credit report.
Exactly. And with the credit score, if you're looking to qualify for a mortgage, they will look at some secondary bills, like paying your cable bill or paying your electric bill, some of those extra things, but they're looking more at payment history on car loans and, housing loans and so forth.
In working with your residents, you plug them into FES, the Financial Education Services.
Yeah, I'm actually an agent for them, so I'll get them directly hooked up if they need the help there.
Okay, so you're the direct go-to person that they interface with. And you've been able to help people improve their credit scores to the point where they've been able to go get a traditional loan on property?
It's kind of interesting. There's definitely a lot of people out there that need it. I find it kind of interesting that not everyone does it, that needs the help. I've got a lot of people that they certainly could benefit from it, but, and they know they need the help, but still aren't willing to go get the help.
Well, it's funny. That's so true. I think a lot of people just, when it comes to finances and money, it seems overwhelming, and it's easier to just stick your head in the sand.
In some cases,
and not face the facts.
And especially some folks that have just an atrocious, credit report.
Yeah.
They just don't know where to start and what's going to help. But anything that you can get cleaned off there that shouldn't be there. In some cases, things have been paid off. People have had situations where, they've paid the bills off, but there's not the resources. These credit bureaus don't have the resources to research everything that's on everybody's credit report. So they just go with what's on there. But with some law changes, now people have the right to protest those, what's on their credit report, and try to get them removed. So they have essentially 30 to 60 days, a creditor to prove that somebody actually owes that, and if they don't respond, then they need to remove it, and if they don't remove it, then they are liable to get sued.
Well, it even seems like knowing who to contact to dispute something like that can be a massive undertaking. So a group like Financial Education Services would do that on your behalf.
Exactly. Yep.
For a nominal fee or whatever it might cost.
And it's nice. They don't have any long-term contracts.
What would someone typically pay to improve their credit card?
Well, it just depends
or
on
credit score.
Yeah, completely depends on what's on their credit report. So each person's a little bit different. I usually tell people, plan on 6 months to a year. With bankruptcies, typically they say don't start protesting it till it's been completed for anywhere from 2 to 6 months after it's completed. You could actually start protesting to see about getting that removed. But I usually tell folks plan on 6 to 12 months, and if you meet what you're looking to do before that, wonderful. There's no long-term contracts with us. And also 100% satisfaction guarantee. So if anybody tries the service for some reason doesn't like it, they can cancel. And if if you get to the point that you don't need it anymore, then you can cancel at that point.
Yeah. And you were saying it's around $3 a day?
Yeah. Currently, it's less than $3 a day.
So you're looking at under $100 a month.
Exactly.
If it's taking you 6 months, you're $500-$600 in.
Yep.
But now you can go get a loan on a home. You can get a better payment on your auto lease or
they say
payment.
On average, poor credit costs people $250,000 to $1 million over their lifetime in higher fees and higher interest rates and so forth.
Well, I absolutely believe that. I mean, if you're getting a loan on your home, your interest rate is tied to your credit score. Mm-hmm. The better
sometimes
your
even jobs,
True.
Promotions and even rental housing. There's so many things and even your insurance rates for homeowners insurance and vehicle insurance. It's tied to good credit or bad credit. So it comes down to people making good choices.
Mm-hmm.
And just because somebody hasn't made the right choices in the past, or just didn't know enough and got the short end of the stick on it, doesn't mean that somebody has to live that way forever.
Right. So do you work with anybody, or are you only working as an agent for FES? Are you working only for the people who do your rent-to-own system? Oh,
we work with anybody that needs the help there. Certainly, it's a key tie-in with the rent-to-own, helping people there.
I'm just wondering, do you want people to call you about their credit?
Oh, sure. No, totally. We're more than happy to, help people out in any which way we can. So whether they're buying a house from us or not, we certainly can help people that aren't at that stage, at that place.
We'll make sure we get your contact info then at the end of the show. But let's switch gears here, because you brought a book with you. It's by Lou Brown.
Yep.
And it's called Doing Good While Doing Well: How Real Estate Investors Provide a Service and Make a Difference. And you're mentioned in this book.
Yes, I actually have a chapter that I wrote.
You wrote the chapter.
Yep.
In this book. Tell me about that chapter. What do you
Well, it's a lot of this is part of the Community Affordable Housing Providing Program, which is the program that Lou Brown developed, tying into the helping people with rent to own. And essentially, I just covered a lot of my experiences helping people with the Work for Equity programs and helping people to realize the dream of home ownership. People that make enough money to afford the house payments and, hardworking people, but they just don't have the perfect enough credit to walk into a bank. And, the credit guidelines, sometimes they're more stringent, other times they soften up. So it just depends, but we try to be the bridge to help people get into good, decent housing at an affordable price, so that's not going to be too expensive for them. And essentially, helping them to afford the dream of homeownership. And, generally you have stronger communities, people paying, taking pride in their properties, feeling like, they're not just throwing money away every month on rental payments that aren't going to do anything for them in the end. We've got several different steps where they can realize the dream of homeownership.
So what do you like to see when someone comes to you and wants to do your rent-to-own system? What kind of income do you typically would make you say, okay, well, you would qualify? Or what kind of credit score or credit history do you like to see?
Yeah, we kind of, the credit score is not as huge an issue as far as where they're at, but we do like to make sure they're making their payments on time. Our kind of guideline, we have to look at their income. We usually look for the house payment not to be more than, a third of their income. That's kind of the cutoff if they're not making enough.
So if the house payment is $1,000 a month, you'd need to see $3,000 in income.
Exactly, minimum. Yep. Definitely the higher the better. Another key point is how much money somebody can afford to put down. I found it to be a huge red flag if somebody, can't afford to put $3,000 down or $3,500 down towards a house. Either they're not properly saving, or they're just in a situation where they're just not making good decisions. And if they don't have that money to move forward, it's probably not a good sign for them for the future for us to work together.
Do you always insist on at least 3% down?
To get the option, if we're just doing rental, I don't do a lot of rentals. There's so many people out there that want to actually buy the house. We usually try to, because we offer special services there, but occasionally we'll get a good person that, is doing a good job, and they don't have all the money today, but we let them enter our VIP program, which is basically a house on layaway. So allows them to either some cases move into the house right away and just rental and, making additional deposit payments, weekly or monthly until they get to the point where they got the $3,000 or $3,500 down where they can do the rent or rent with the option to buy. Or sometimes, we'll have people that will just be putting, money aside where, we don't have the perfect house for them right now, and they want to start building up their deposits. So they start putting money on deposit. And if it gets to the point where they find another property someplace else they want to buy, then we just return the money to them.
The deposit money.
The deposit money, exactly. And hopefully we'll find the right house for them and, help them to move in there and, have the deposit money down.
How often do you run into the situation where you put someone in a home and they end up defaulting?
We've run into that a few times. We don't run into as much as we used to just by better qualifying people. Originally, when I moved back to Michigan, I found myself, I picked up a number of properties and wasn't doing as good a job. I don't think I wasn't doing a good enough job qualifying them. I was trusting my gut, which in the past had been pretty good. And I had some people that weren't as honest with me. So, we ended up doing 3 or 4 evictions the following year or two after that. But we're also finding that we have to retrain these people to make their payments on time. Their house payment is a priority. And, if that's not the right mentality, then, we're going to have some problems. So we've gotten very strict on because we give them a discount for on-time payments. So, and then they also have a daily charge if they miss that. So they lose their discount and they start getting a daily charge. So we make sure that we're right on top of that if they, don't get the payment in on time, which means, not postmarked on the way to where we are. And we actually do our payments on the 25th of the month, just because usually the residents have a lot of bills that are due on the 1st. So we find by doing it on the 25th of the month, usually it's the secondary check of the month if folks get paid biweekly. So usually there's a little extra funds there for them so that, it doesn't give them one more bill that's due on the 1st when everything else is due also. You got any horror stories? I didn't tell the horror story about the lake house that took 1.5 years to get completed because I had to go through 3 contractors. Essentially, I had a contractor highly recommended to me, and we bought this house from a wholesaler. It was on a lake down in Portage. And so I had this guy came in, gave me a good quote on it. Yep, let's go ahead and get moving forward. And he got himself shut down because he wasn't actually a licensed contractor. Oh. And I hadn't really looked into the details there. And so he got himself shut down. So it took 3 weeks where he said that it was being delayed because the city hadn't approved a deck we wanted to add on. And then he finally fessed up to me. And so I had a buddy of his working on another property of mine who was almost done with it, but that was over budget, taking too long. He teamed up with another guy to do this house as a second contractor, and he just wouldn't get it done. And he had $25,000 sitting out there and just wouldn't complete it. And, we went from, because it's supposed to be done in April, he said, it'll be done by Labor Day. Wasn't done. And finally, in September, October, I just had to fire him. I just gave him $4,000 for flooring, and I'm just like, we didn't get any flooring, nothing's getting done. He was never at the job site. His people didn't know where he was. And so finally I got the original other contractor I was trying to get in, and he used to build new houses. And after the downturn, he had 10 or 12 spec houses that went down, on lakes throughout Michigan. And so he's just went out on his own doing renovations. So he came in and finished some stuff and finally got the house we put on the market. But December 15th on the lake, snow's starting to come. And so we sat on it till this nice sunny weather came along. So, but that was supposed to be $80,000 to $100,000 profit. And I think we walked away with maybe 10 to 15 each. So
not worth all the headache and hassle you went through.
Oh yeah, we ended up and we even sold it for more than what we were expecting to sell at the top end at the time. But yeah, so and that came on the heels of the one my investor had lost 90 to 120. So we've never lost money on a deal. There's been some that we've squeaked by, not made a lot. So we never make what the home shows show you're going to make, but we've still made a profit, which, according to my investor, is a rare thing that other people elsewhere admire.
Do you watch those home shows? Those HGTV flip?
Flip and Flop is kind of my favorite. I got a couple little ones, so I don't get a chance to watch TV as much as, I would like, but occasionally I'll pop that on. So,
what do you see happening on those shows that seems unrealistic to you?
Just the numbers, it's so funny because you see them, especially on Flip and Flop, and they're like, the expenses are going through the roof. They find stuff that they weren't expecting, and they're like, oh my God, we're going to lose so much money on this, and they always end up making out wonderfully on it. And making all this money, and I'm just like, really? I'm like, I wish that was real world stuff around here, Unfortunately, it's not usually. It's all about making money in real estate is buying at the right place. You make your money when you buy it. If you pay too much, which I would have done if I had started doing this in Maine and had opportunities to purchase properties that were, headed towards foreclosure. And I just looked at the numbers and I said, they just paid way too much. The numbers don't make sense. So you really have to analyze the numbers and look strongly. And, if you're good at estimating costs, wonderful. If you're not, have a good realtor that has a good tact there, or a contractor, bring them through the houses. With many of the houses we work with, we already know that it needs a lot. So we don't usually worry too much about inspections on some of these foreclosures and stuff we buy, because we know we're going to be going through and redoing, a bunch of stuff. So we know there's issues. Many of them don't have power or water on. So, that's not as big a deal being in the city, but out in the country, sometimes you got to worry about wells not working, just things to be aware of. But if you buy conservatively enough, there's the opportunity where, you can make money on it regardless of negatives that happen.
And what markets do you like right now?
I essentially focus more on larger communities where there's a higher population, more need, there's more customers to potentially buy. Locations that have good schools are always a key, but you usually pay for those up front more. The folks that, the working class, the blue collar folks that make a decent living, aren't rich, but make enough money where they can afford the housing. So, we're kind of find those in the 80 to 100,000 after repair value properties. It's amazing what you can do, at least around Michigan with $10, $15, $20,000. You can fix up most of the houses that are out there around that price. So just depending if they have a good roof, good foundation, good working furnace system, and so forth. A bathroom, you're looking at spending maybe $5,000 to $10,000 to renovate. A kitchen, similar. But, make sure you talk to other people to get the best prices and good contractors and so forth. We just, we're flipping one on the southeast side of Grand Rapids right now, and we just had another couple in, and we're talking to them about prices on some of the stuff, and they're relatively new to the flipping. And we're talking about some of the prices and just hearing how much they've paid, and they actually paid their realtor to do some help to find them contractors to do stuff. And wow, some of the money they're paying, it's going to limit how much they make in return, because they ended up paying a lot more, where in talking and finding some better resources at lower prices will definitely help their back end when they go to flip the property.
Where would they go to find the better resources?
Just coming to some of the meetings, like with the RPOA and the RIA. We've got several meetings every month, some of them weekly, and just networking with folks, letting them know, hey, I need a roofer. Hey, I need a plumber. I need an electrician. Does anybody have recommendations on this? One of the things you can do sometimes is you can find folks to do granite or quartz at a much more reduced price if they can use kind of basically leftovers from other projects. We did that at a real nice house out in Walker, where they essentially had some smaller pieces of granite left over. And so we were able to put seams like right around the sink. and they grouted it. You wouldn't even know unless you were looking for it that it wasn't one solid piece of granite. And it was able to cut our costs, maybe in half to put granite throughout this entire house.
Any other advice you might have for people out there who are interested in the rent-to-own system?
Lou Brown and Street Smart Systems is definitely, if you're interested in rent-to-own, have a lot of great information out there. He's very well-rounded. You can do a little bit of everything with Lou. But just getting educated. I was always out there when I had the time. I don't have the time as much anymore, but always listening, taking advantage of any type of training opportunities, whether it was audio conferences or webinars that come across through the email from different investors, reading different resources that you can get on real estate. For me, I really enjoy meeting people, and so I enjoy the networking and so forth that come with some of the local meetings in our area, and have been attending those for the last 3 years since I've been here, and really enjoyed it, and really gotten some very positive insight and some thoughts on different projects and so forth that ideas perhaps I didn't have that I've found very, very helpful. And a lot of those people are out there, they love to help new people out, and help them get started on the right foot so that, they'll be able to make it long-term in the real estate market, whether they're renting, flipping, or rent-own, whatever they might be doing.
And the networking opportunities that you take advantage of, which ones are those?
There's a Friday morning breakfast at Cheshire Grill every Friday morning at 8 a.m.
In Grand Rapids.
I'm sorry, in Grand Rapids, yes. So the RPOA puts that on. I'm an active member with the RPOA, so there's a lot of educational classes I could take advantage of as well throughout the month. And then there's also a Monday night, once a month, RIA meeting at in Wyoming at the BW3s.
Once again, why don't you let our listeners know how they can contact you?
Todd at nicehometoday.com. And my work number is 866-386-0590. And certainly love to help anybody out any way we can.
What was your Nice Homes website?
That's www.nicehometoday.com.
If someone wanted to contact you about your credit restoration, would they just call you, or is there another website?
Either those are fine.
Okay. Well, Todd, thanks for taking the time to talk with us today. I've learned a lot about your rent-to-own system that you learned from Lou Brown. It sounds like a great system. The way you provide affordable housing and work with people to restore their credit, that's been interesting as well. So thanks for taking the time to tell us about it.
Thanks so much for having me.
This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And Icon Realty Group, helping home buyers, sellers, and investors in the West Michigan area. Find out more at theiconrealtygroup.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.